protesting because they have run out of excuses for their own failures. Republicans understand that Americans are blaming them for the shutdown. Americans are blaming them for out of control healthcare prices and a rising affordability crisis. They are blaming them for the fear and chaos gripping the country. They are panicking and they are flailing and they are searching for anything, literally anything, to distract from their own governing failures. And in their desperation, they have decided to go with smearing millions of Americans who are coming out to peacefully, joyfully assert our rights. It is both ridiculous and outrageous. It is ridiculous because it is transparently false. It is outrageous because it is an attack on our First Amendment and on the right, all of our rights to free speech. I want to address Mike Johnson's smear specifically because I think it's really telling that he spent an entire week calling this a hate America rally on the attack against this coalition and Americans across the country, and he won't even say the name of the protest. That's because if you say the name of the protest, no kings, the entire argument falls apart. He is claiming that this is some kind of anti-American event. I want to respond directly. At the first No Kings protest, my husband closed out the flagship event in Philadelphia, our nation's birthplace, by leading 100,000 attendees in the Pledge of Allegiance in front of a sea of waving American flags. There is nothing more American than saying that we don't have kings and exercising our right to peaceful protest. America doesn't have kings. That's our entire point. I also want to be clear. It is ridiculous. It's also sinister because it is part of a broader effort to create a permission structure to crack down on organized opposition and peaceful dissent in this country. They are sending the National Guard into American cities. They are terrorizing our immigrant friends and neighbors with their secret police. They are prosecuting political opponents, and now they are trying to smear millions of Americans who are coming out to protest so that they can justify a crackdown on peaceful dissent. It is the classic authoritarian playbook. Threaten, smear, and lie. Scare people into submission. But we will not be intimidated. We will not be cowed. We will not bow down. These protests are peaceful, disciplined, and grounded in solidarity. That is what they fear, our unity, and we're going to show it on October 18th.
Good morning. I'm Deirdre Schiefling, the Chief Political and Advocacy Officer of the ACLU. For more than 100 years, the American Civil Liberties Union has defended the cornerstones of our democracy, including the First Amendment. We know how crucial the rights granted by it are: freedom of speech, the press, and assembly. Those rights are critical to our free society. That's why the ACLU, along with our affiliates and millions of supporters in every state, will mobilize this Saturday in peaceful protest against the Trump administration's attacks on our freedom. Let me be clear. President Trump and his allies are abusing their power and attempting to scare their own citizens away from exercising our rights and freedoms. What we've seen so far is as troubling as it is illegal. The Trump administration has directed ICE to kidnap people, including journalists and students, off the street, ripping them from their families and deporting them without due process. Their allies are attempting to undermine fair elections at President Trump's direction by redistricting voting maps and further gerrymandering states. And they are attempting to limit our First Amendment rights and use the federal government to attack political rivals, stifle dissent, and undermine checks and balances on presidential power. The Trump administration has even deployed armed agents and troops into American cities, including my home of Washington, D.C., turning our streets into militarized zones and threatening to do so again to quash Saturday's protests. You have to ask, why are they so afraid of their own citizens? Well, they know their agenda of sowing fear, division, misinformation, law-breaking, and violence is deeply unpopular. Millions of Americans will peacefully protest on Saturday to tell the Trump administration that we are a country of equals. We are a country of laws that apply to everyone, of due process, and of democracy. We will not be silenced. If we stop exercising our rights, our First Amendment freedom of speech, out of fear, we forfeit our power in advance. The best way to protect our freedom is to act free. In just the last few weeks, The ACLU has trained tens of thousands of people on their rights when protesting and when encountering immigration agents, law enforcement, and military troops. We're proud that No Kings will have Know Your Rights materials available at events in 10 languages. And this weekend, we will distribute millions of cards reminding people that the Constitution protects their freedom to protest peacefully. By empowering our communities with the knowledge, support, and resources they need to stay safe, we are building our power. And momentum is on our side. Americans across the political spectrum are rejecting President Trump's efforts to weaponize the federal government, violate the First Amendment, and erode our freedom of speech. That opposition has the Trump administration quaking in their boots, like Leah just said. They might try to paint this weekend's events as something dangerous to our society, but the reality is there is nothing unlawful or unsafe about organizing and attending peaceful protests. It's the most patriotic and American thing you can do. And we have a 250-year-old history of disagreeing in public. In this country, everyone is entitled to their beliefs and to act on them lawfully without fear of punishment, no matter what the government in power happens to think of those beliefs. This weekend, we will protest peacefully and with courage, courage that will fuel our community's resistance long after Saturday's peaceful protests have ended. And with that, I will hand it to Katie Bethel from Move On.
Thank you, Deirdre. It is an honor to join all of you incredible leaders today. And we, speaking today, are only a few of the nearly 300 partners in the No Kings Coalition. My name's Katie Bethel, and I'm the executive director of Move On. Move On is one of the largest national progressive advocacy groups with millions of members. We have members in every congressional district in the country. And in addition to serving as Move On's executive director, I'm also a mom. And in our house, we tell the truth. That's why I'm going to take a few minutes now to fact check some of the lies that we've heard from Speaker Johnson and congressional Republicans this week about the peaceful No Kings protests on Saturday. I'd like to give them a bit of a reality check. These peaceful events are taking place everywhere, in rural and suburban communities, including in their own districts. Let's be crystal clear about who is peacefully taking the streets on Saturday. It's teachers, federal workers, nurses, families, our neighbors, and our friends. All of our leaders, Republicans and Democrats alike, should listen to what these patriotic Americans have to say. The millions of people protesting are centered around a fierce love of our country, a country that we believe is worth fighting for. This is the reality. Across cities and towns, large and small, rural and suburban, in red areas, blue areas, millions of us are peacefully coming together on Saturday to send a clear and unmistakable message: the power belongs to the people. To name a few of the No Kings events I'm talking about, we're excited to see 11 rallies across Speaker Johnson's home state of Louisiana. I'm fired up about the protest happening in Bryson City, North Carolina, a town with a population of just 1,200 people. There's an event in Storm Lake, Iowa, home to 12,000. And one of my favorites in Traverse City, Michigan, No Kings protesters are donating food to local food banks as a part of their event. The list goes on and on. Over 2,600 events, millions of people. The right to protest, to assemble, to speak is what America is all about. And Move On's millions of members are ready to come together this Saturday, October 18th, to express that right. Trump, the Republican Party, and their billionaire donors, they think everything belongs to them, but they're wrong. This is our country, and we cannot afford to wait any longer to make our voices heard. Thank you. And with that, I'll pass it over to one of our movement's fearless leaders, Sarah Parker with 5051 and Voices of Florida.
Thank you so much, Katie. Hi, guys. My name is Sarah Parker. I am a 5051 National Coordinator. I'm also the Executive Director of Voices of Florida. And I think I'm here most importantly to not only thank all the national partners, but also thank the heroes in this story, the real heroes in this story. And those are your everyday Americans. This movement was built by the people. The name was chosen by the people. They created this momentum and they are this movement. Every rally, every march, and every community gathering has been planned by local organizers, by organizers that never picked up a megaphone since the beginning of this year, that organizers that are doing it for their first time ever. These are everyday Americans coming together to organize, just like Katie said. These are faith leaders, teachers, veterans, small business owners who are being impacted by extreme and dubious, dare I say, tariffs. These are people that are seeing their friends and their family members be kidnapped off of the streets. These are everyday Americans that are struggling to put groceries into their fridge. And these are millennials and Gen Zers who were promised a beautiful and free America, just like me. And they're using their God-given American right to peacefully assemble. And they are rising to this moment because they feel it is not only their duty, it is their obligation to joyfully and peacefully push back against authoritarianism, like the generations that have come before us. As a millennial, I remember saying the pledge every single day, growing up in the middle of nowhere, Georgia. I said that with hope and honor. And I love my country. And if anyone says differently, it's smoke and mirrors. It's a distraction, and it's plain old cowardice. They are refusing to accept the fact that the American people are pissed by the millions. They are refusing to accept the fact that their actions are harming our beloved country. They are refusing to look in the mirror and accept the fact that they are destroying America. And let's call it what it is. It's a lack of accountability and denial. We have a saying in the South, a hit dog will holler, and I'm hearing a lot of noise from Washington, D.C. right now. And with that said, on October 18th, millions of people just like me, mothers, Black women, multicultural, multi-generational people are going to take the streets peacefully and say there will be no kings in America. And with that being said, I would like to pass it over to Robert, one of our amazing leaders.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and everybody. I wanted to say a few words about lawfulness and lawlessness. This Saturday, as we've been hearing, millions of Americans are going to join together in every state, from every walk of life, in every neighborhood, to engage in peaceful, nonviolent, lawful, pro-Constitution, pro-democracy protests on a scale never seen in modern American history. That's lawfulness. Unfortunately, also unprecedentedly, we live under the most unlawful administration in American history. The evidence of that is all around us. It's in the illegal firings celebrated by this administration. It's in the illegal efforts to refuse to spend money and shutter agencies that are congressionally created. It's in an illegal assassination program against people that the administration alleges are doing harm to the United States, but wouldn't be guilty of capital offenses even if those claims were true. It's in the illegal kidnappings of people off our streets based on their political views. It is also evident in the refusal to enforce the law or to enforce the law selectively. This administration, within its first 100 days, dropped 100 enforcement actions against large corporations. It pledged it would not prosecute corporations for engaging in foreign bribery. It shuttered or tried to shutter the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the agency that cracks down on financial fraudsters. It's even gone so far as to pardon corporations. It is a lawless administration. And it is an administration aggressively and increasingly aggressively trying to stifle dissent, unlawfully and unconstitutionally. We see that in the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the selective persecution of purported political enemies of the president. We see that in the effort to crack down on the media, to intimidate the media, to deny press passes, to try to force programs opposing Donald Trump off the air. We see that in the deployment of the National Guard on false pretexts that are plainly designed to intimidate and stifle dissent. And we see that in the increasing threat of criminal prosecution against organizations and individuals who oppose the president. Every American should rise against these threats. No American should have to take their kid to school walking by threatening our military, and no American should want any other American to have to do that. No American should fear jail time because of their political views, and no American should want any American to fear jail time because of their political views. So we're responding to these threats with this unprecedented protest. This protest is no threat to national security, as it has been ludicrously claimed. But more than that, protest is a sign of our freedom. Protest is how we make our country stronger. It's what has made our country stronger for 250 years. And every major advance of progress has been driven by protest on the streets. This is the underlying theory of the No Kings protests for this Saturday. We are going to turn out in unprecedented numbers, and we protect our democracy by vigorously exercising our democratic rights. And we're going to do both those things. We're going to vigorously exercise our democratic rights, peacefully and nonviolently, and against this tyrannical threat of Donald Trump and his administration, we are going to protect American democracy. With that, let me throw it over to Jaime Contreras from SEIU BJ.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks everybody for the eloquent words. I'm Jaime Contreras. I'm an Executive Vice President for SEIU 32 BJ. Our union represents 185,000 janitors, security officers, airport workers, and service employees up and down the East Coast, including 2,400 federal contractor workers along the East Coast as well. We're part of the 2 million strong SEIU family. But I also come to you as an immigrant, somebody who frankly was brought here undocumented in 1988 by my parents. I was 13 years old. But I'm also a veteran of the United States Navy. So some of the things that are happening with this administration are, offensive to say the least. And I do feel for our servicemen and women who are being put probably against their will in some of the, the streets of our cities. But with that said, every day our members clean and protect federal and commercial office buildings up and down the East Coast, higher education institutions, and they are the ones that keep our airport running. We organize for justice, for dignity, for respect, but we don't just mobilize and organize ourselves. We mobilize and organize for everyone, for working families, for immigrants, for every community that's being targeted under this administration. We organize for everyone that deserves to live and work with dignity. On October 18th, SEIU members will be in the streets across the country as part of the No Kings, because America belongs to the people, working people, not to billionaires or a few politicians who think they can rule like kings in a democracy like ours. Let me be clear. Our movement, as you've heard from other presenters, is a peaceful movement. It always has been. It's a disciplined movement, and it's a union strong movement. We've been organizing workers for generations, and we know what solidarity looks like. Every No Kings action has trained marshals, community safety teams, and partners with local organizations to make our message powerful and peaceful. Now, Speaker Johnson can laugh all he wants, but blaming working people for his own government shutdown is beneath the office that he holds. The real threat to this country isn't peaceful protesters. It's politicians shutting down our government to protect billionaires and corporate greed. What's ironic to me is you call peaceful protesters terrorists, but then the people who destroyed our nation's Capitol building, patriots. That's so ironic and so far from the truth. This isn't just about one day. ACLU members are organizing year round in our workplaces, our neighborhoods, and at the ballot box to build a country that works for all of us. We're saying no to authoritarian power grabs, no to government shutdowns that hurt working people, including military families, and no to billionaires getting richer while workers get left behind. We're saying yes to health care for all and child care for all. Yes to strong unions. Yes to immigrant justice. And yes to a democracy that works for the people who actually make this country run every day. And we also, when we say no kings, we mean it. America doesn't belong to a handful of CEOs or politicians. It belongs to the janitors, the teachers, the airport workers, restaurant workers, the construction people, farmers, healthcare workers, the people who get up every morning and keep this country running. We fought for better pay, safer jobs, and the right to organize, and we've won. We'll keep organizing, we'll keep mobilizing, because we know that when working people stand together, no king, no billionaires, no politician can stop us. On October 18th and every day, we'll show the world what democracy really looks like. So I'll end by saying no thrones, no clowns with crowns, no kings, just working people united in power to defend our democracy. Now it is my honor to introduce our next speaker, who is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, also an educator, Randy Weingarten.
Thank you so much, Jaime, and thank you. I'm honored to be with everyone who is here. I speak in two capacities today. First, as a high school social studies teacher, and second, as the long-term leader of the 1.8 million member AFT, which represents public employees, healthcare employees, educators from Head Start to tenured faculty, and all across America. People who make a difference every day in the lives of other Americans. And I stand with every person's comments here. But I want to start as a social studies teacher, because I have been quite shocked that people who take an oath of office to the American Constitution, a constitution that says in its First Amendment that there is a right to peaceful assembly. The pillar of our democracy is our right to speak, our right to be free, our right to be the rebellious people that our founders were 249 years ago. Now, I don't want to basically say that the founders were the greatest about everything, but they had this idea. And that idea was, we are becoming a nation of laws, a nation built on ideas and aspirations of imperfect men who knew we needed a process to perfect the union. And they knew more than anything else that one thing they wanted to make sure would never, ever happen again was that a monarch or a king would rule us, that it was going to be a nation of laws and a nation of people. That is what the No Kings movement is rooted in. So whether you are Jaime or me, who believe in workers' rights, who believe in this fight to make sure that premiums don't skyrocket for the 25 million people who get Obamacare, whether you believe in collective bargaining or you don't, whether you believe in public schools or you don't, whether you believe in a whole bunch of things or you don't. America is about being able to fight over those issues in a nonviolent, peaceful way. And that is what No Kings is about. And that is why, regardless of whether people are Democrats or independents or Republicans, they are coming out on October 18th. They're coming out for their future. They're coming out to make sure that grocery prices don't keep escalating. They're coming out to make sure that they have a future and their kids have a future. That's who we are. So how would someone who is sworn to the Constitution say this is about hating America? This is about loving America. This is about wanting to have a future and wanting all of us to have a future. And that is why my union is proudly supporting No Kings, as we did in June, as we supported Hands Off in April, because at the end of the day, we the people are the ones who are going to ensure whether or hope whether this country remains a democracy or not. We have an obligation to the people in America to fight for the people in America. Just like those 249 years ago, just like those in the civil rights movement, that is our obligation. That is our moral obligation. And we are all taking that moral obligation on to have a peaceful, nonviolent protest. And what you're seeing across America is that people are coming out, and no threat and no smear is going to, just like no threat and no smear stops teachers from teaching children, no threat and no smear is going to stop us from trying to make sure this is a country of law, this is a country of freedom, and this is a country where we see a democracy going forward, not backward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. I wanted to, we're going to open it up for a few questions from the media. If folks could use the raise hand function, if you would like to ask a question, and I'll send you a request to unmute. Oren, if you could just say your name and the publication you're representing.
Hi, I'm Oren Oppenheim. I'm with ABC News National. Thanks so much for doing this. Wanted to ask two quick questions. First off, specifically on the No Kings protests planned in California. I know there's been some reports over Vice President J.D. Vance visiting Camp Pendleton and possible highway closures and ammunition fire, live fire activities, and Governor Newsom's been raising alarms about that. What are you guys tracking with that? How are you making plans if areas are closed or if there are safety concerns? Do you think some of that is in response to No Kings? And more broadly, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion, and you guys touched on this, but how would you respond to the questions that Republicans are saying of who's funding No Kings?
Thank you. Who'd like to go first?
I can go to speak for what's happening in California. I know when it comes to 5051 LA, it is business as usual. They're continuing, they have their safety measures, they're continuing to do the work. We know that they're going to throw wrenches at us in this moment. We watch them all over the media slander. The organizers are excited, the speakers are excited, the attendees are excited, and we're not going to allow them to stop us and stop this momentum when it comes to 5051 LA, from what I understand.
Wow. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry,
Randy,
you
go
go.
ahead.
Look, I'm just, this movement is fueled by people power, not by oligarchical interests. And, there are many of us who have put, funding into this movement, but this is a people power funded movement. And what you can see is just how concerned, the powers that be, the reaction they should have to a movement like this is to actually solve people's problems, to actually say, we are not taking away your democracy, not to actually try to be disruptive of it. If you're actually voted in by the people in a democracy, your job is to solve people's problems, not to try to make more.
Yeah. And I can only add, I guess who's funding this movement is people who care about saving our democracy. I think the question people should be asking is, do you remember who gave Donald Trump, was it 350 million or 250 million? Wasn't that Elon Musk? Why aren't people asking questions about that? Oligarchs, billionaires are the people who are funding his campaign and his, campaign to destroy our democracy. So those are the questions that we should be asking. And by the way, why don't we release the Epstein files?
Thank you so much, Jaime. I'm going to go to Alex. Alex, if you can just send your request not to unmute, if you could say your publication.
Hello, my name is Alex Cox. I'm with WRKF, the NPR affiliate in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I've heard Speaker Johnson's name come up a couple of times. I just want to squarely get someone to address why is it so important that there are these No Kings protests in Louisiana? I believe there's 7, if I'm remembering correctly.
We'll get you that number, Alex, but Leah, do you want to take that one?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think what's important to understand here is that this is a genuinely nationwide phenomenon. It is occurring in rural places, it is occurring in urban areas, it is occurring in red places and blue places. The public backlash to Donald Trump and his regime of cronies and corruption and attacks on our rights is incredibly widespread, and in fact it's happening at a scale that we've never seen before. I'm just going to give an example. The single largest national mass day of action in the first Trump term was around 750 protests around the country for the Families Belong Together mobilizations protesting family separation in 2018. 750, which was incredible at the time. We are looking at between 2,500 and 2,600 mobilizations all over the country. Wherever you are in the country, you are not far from your local No Kings mobilization. You can get there in a half hour. And that speaks to the fact that Donald Trump's regime has created massive public backlash, including amongst people who've never thought they were political before, including amongst people who might not think of themselves as progressive or liberal before. We are seeing people come out who have never been political because they're upset about tariffs. They're upset about the economy and the cost of living crisis. They're upset because they're seeing their neighbors ripped away from their families. People are rising up everywhere. And so I think that's important to understand for Louisiana as it is for everywhere in the country.
Thanks, Leah. Next, April, I'm going to come to you.
Hi, everyone. April with Axios here. I am wondering how your organizations will plan to respond if the National Guard is deployed to any nationwide protests on Saturday.
Deirdre, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we have done a lot of preparation and know your rights with people across the country. We just held another Know Your Rights training yesterday that had like 18,000 people at it, so that people are prepared if the National Guard is deployed. There is no way that the National Guard should be violating the rights of people to peacefully protest. They have to obey the laws of the states that they're in. Just because they are deployed does not give them permission to violate people's rights. And we do not anticipate anything other than peaceful, lawful protests around the country. I will say one additional thing, which is that we recently did some polling just to take the temperature of the American public around these National Guard deployments, and the American public is not with this. They do not approve of these deployments. 3/4 of the American public are upset about it, think that it is a misuse of the National Guard, a misuse of power, and it's a very unpopular move. So if we do not expect there to be any need for the National Guard to be deployed, but if the Trump administration attempts to do that as a way to intimidate peaceful protests, we are prepared for that.
Thank you. David, I'm going to send you a request to unmute now.
Thanks, and thanks for doing this. Just adjacent to the National Guard question, are any of your organizations monitoring the threat from counter protesters, extremism groups on the far right? There appears to be at least some chatter on social media platforms and more fringe platforms about some groups in isolation targeting certain events, but I'm just wondering if you're actively monitoring the situation, and if so, how you're doing that. Thanks.
Deirdre or Leah?
Yeah, I mean, we have done a lot of security training with event hosts and de-escalation training. We do not anticipate, again, having anything other than peaceful protests. That is what we have trained folks to do. That is what we've organized people to do. And that is what we anticipate. If there are outside organizations who are attempting to cause problems, then we will do our best to de-escalate and ensure that these events are safe and secure. But as of now, we don't have information that indicates anything other than beautiful, peaceful protests across this country.
Agree with all that. We take the safety and security of everyone participating enormously seriously. That's why we train tens of thousands of folks. We'll continue to be in close touch with any organizers in any place where we have reason to believe there's a specific concern. I would also turn around and ask that question to Mike Johnson. I would ask that question to Republicans. Why are they inciting and smearing millions of regular Americans, teachers, veterans, members of faith communities? Why are they creating this kind of agitation directed against people who are peacefully protesting and exercising their rights?
And Lori, we can follow up with you in the chat there. Next, I'm going to go to Brad.
Yes, thank you for doing this. I'm with Reuters. I have two questions. The first one is, can you give us a specific figure number on how many millions of people you hope to see out? I know crowd estimates are always really hard, and it takes some weeks afterwards for organizations who do those sorts of estimates to come up with a number. But if you have a goal, a figure, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, I'd love to hear it. And my second question is on, I've covered protests in many countries, mass movements, and there can always be issues with outside groups sort of attaching themselves to mass movements, and they may be troublemakers or people wanting to confront police or what have you, not people who are necessarily wanting to confront you guys. Do you have any concerns about any violence happening, hours after your protest, this ban that could be associated with the protests? I saw a little bit of that after No Kings when I was in Los Angeles in June. Had nothing to do with No Kings clearly, but kind of on the edges of the No Kings protest, if you know what I mean. Are you guys combating that in any way?
Before we go to that question, just to answer, because a few folks are asking, over 2,600 events and millions anticipated to attend is where we are on numbers, and just wanted to put that out there. And then Leah, I don't know if you were about to come off mute.
I'm happy to. I would say we're not gonna speculate about the actions of outside actors. What we are doing is working really intensively with all of our hosts to build out safety plans, to train as many folks as possible in safety and de-escalation, and to make sure that everybody has the tools that they need to have peaceful and safe and joyful and defiant events all across the country.
May I add to that, Leah? And because the ACLU has done, as has Indivisible, as has frankly 50501, many of our partners have done lots and lots of training. We have another training, I think, targeted, another training just for AFT members in the next day or so. We also have ourselves trained thousands of people in de-escalation tactics and other types of things. Our movement is a peaceful nonviolent movement, and we believe in nonviolence. And there are marshals, as someone else has said, there are many marshals, there are people all over everyone who we have talked to about this understands the principles of nonviolence and understands the principles of fighting for our democracy. So you can never speculate. I mean, you can never speculate about this is America and lots of things happen in America. But the fact that there are 2,600 events and millions of people expected, and the fact, as Leah just said, that that actors who should be supporting peaceful protests are actually smearing peaceful protests means that they know, like we do, what is about to happen on Saturday, which is a huge peaceful protest that says we need a democracy, a joyful, defiant, peaceful protest.
If I could just add an additional compliment. So I think, we have a track record on this from hands off and no kings. So we don't have to sort of imagine what it's going to be. And also, it's not just that it's going to be peaceful and you're hearing about all these trainings. Nonviolence is a commitment, a principle commitment driving what we collectively are doing.
Exactly.
I think, to echo Leah's point in a different context, it's worth underscoring, while we are committed to nonviolence, this administration is unfurling violence on our streets every day and threatening more. Having masked agents kidnap people without identification, that's violence. Having armed guards or armed National Guard patrolling our streets, as they're doing here right outside of my office as I speak, is the threat of violence intended to intimidate us. So 100% embrace of nonviolence on our side, but you cannot say that for the authoritarian regime we're facing.
Thank you so much, Robert. Last question, I'm gonna send it over to Carlos from Univision. And then for anyone who we didn't get to your question, I'll put my email in the chat. Feel free to email me and we'll get you an answer today. Carlos.
Thank you so much. My question is Jaime Contreras. You can Spanish, please, for Univision, Jaime. Jaime, gracias por esta entrevista, por esta oportunidad. Quisiéramos saber cómo se están planificando para este sábado y ante la posibilidad incluso de que estas protestas puedan ser declaradas como no legales, ¿cómo ustedes podrían enfrentar esto?
Bueno, Carlos, gracias por la pregunta. Creo que el récord que tenemos como organizaciones que han planificado muchas marchas en el pasado, y estamos hablando en las últimas décadas, todas han sido pacíficas, todas han sido marchas donde nuestra gente ha sido protegida por las personas que hemos entrenado, capacitado para desescalar y para estar vigilando que nada vaya a suceder que esté fuera del plan de trabajo que hemos hecho. Hemos hecho capacitaciones para las personas que van a estar jugando el papel de seguridad. Otra vez, el récord que tenemos como organizaciones en todas las marchas, ya sea en Washington, Los Ángeles, Chicago, Nueva York, donde hemos estado involucrados como ACLU, como sindicatos, como organizaciones de movimiento, han sido pacíficas y ese es el plan esta vez. Nosotros vamos a hacer todo lo posible para que nuestra gente salga y no se sienta intimidada a salir a proteger nuestras familias, nuestras comunidades y también nuestra democracia en este país.
Thank you so much, Jaime. I just want to thank everyone for joining today. If you have any questions, I have put my email in the chat. Please email me. We will get you an answer today. There will be a recording of this press conference posted to the No Kings YouTube channel that will also be sent out. Thank you all for joining. Have a good day.